Welcome back to The Issue. I'm Mark Carr with my co-host, Michael Wallace, the marathon man who ran in 10 provinces. He was also a former city councillor and former member of parliament for Burlington South. So it's great. It's nice to have you here, Mike.
Happy to be here.
So we had talked about real estate in the first segment of the show, and now we're going to talk to Marty Stas, Vice Chair of the Board of Directors from the Burlington Chamber of Commerce. And Marty, you had the Chamber had a panel discussion on intensification, and that was last week.
That's correct. Yeah.
And the province has dictated to municipalities to take 2006 growth numbers and double them.
That's the number that's out there, and if you speak to the experts and then if you read a lot of the things you read, the numbers are, it's almost like they almost don't mean anything because they're not achievable.
Okay.
You know, they're just so far above and beyond. I mean, I think Burlington for the year 2020 has a projection of 193,000 people. We're actually probably tracking more towards 250. And I don't know specifically what the numbers are that the province has put out there, but I know they're even higher than that. So
for us to get to 250, based on where they've drawn the line in the official plan, that means that all that growth, in terms of residential growth, would have to happen in the current urban envelope that's there.
Exactly.
And what's the Chamber's position on that?
Well,
they're loving it. They're loving it.
You know, it's an interesting topic, if you will, because I mean it combines both. It combines the residential aspect, the people aspect, and it combines the business aspect. Like you, I'm a realtor as well, so I mean I've got a vested interest from both sides. But I think, you know, it's a good thing as far as the chamber is concerned. As far as business is concerned, intensification will most likely turn out to be a good thing. You know, we can think of plants like Cami up in Woodstock and the Honda plant in Alliston and the Toyota plants. It was a build it and they will come aspect.
Right.
The whole approach to intensification is the opposite, is create an environment where people want to live, where they want to grow, where they've got the amenities, where they're living in beautiful spaces. You know,
but with those kind of numbers, what you have thought of as your municipality is no longer going to have that same feel if that intensification takes place. So I agree with you. You should build it, have green space, but the likelihood of it feeling like the same municipality is pie in the sky thinking, I think, because of those numbers coming in, that intensification.
Well, and I agree with you 100%. However, I mean, my approach to that would be, what choice do we have?
Right.
You know, like,
you can all vote in the provincial elections coming up, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's true. No, well, I guess I'm speaking more from realistic terms.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's from immigration, I think I was listening to the earlier part of the program and talking about the influx of Toronto residents coming this way. I mean, the growth is coming, and I guess, you know, the flip side to it is keep the growth down and then watch your property taxes skyrocket. Right. So, you know, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But you're right. The city that we live in is not the city 10 years from now that we'll remember.
So when I was, and Mark was also a municipal politician, it was over a decade ago now, but intensification was a discussion point, but really I don't think the public understood what that actually meant on the ground. Do you think that you know, we've been at it for a little while. We're still not that intense, really, in Burlington, let's be frank, compared to other communities. Do you think the public has come around to understand what intensification means and what it may mean to their neighborhood or to their city?
Well, I think, no. To answer your with a yes or no answer, I don't think they do. But I think what happens is they look at, like, the Plains Road Corridor,
right.
And I guess that's the prime example, or they look at Paradigm at the GO Center, at the GO Station. So they think, is that the way my entire city is going to look? Well, you know, the
Just look at
plans.
the changes in Toronto that, and people 10, 15 years ago wouldn't have thought Toronto was going to look like that with the influx of condos and high buildings.
No, I agree. And a lot of that comes down to affordability too. Mm-hmm. And again, that if you listen to Mary Lou Tanner, who's our chief planner, that's one of her prime concerns is affordable housing. That's probably, in my opinion, is probably going to be the biggest challenge, because are you going to, Vince Molinaro was at our panel discussion, and someone asked the question about, well, what about families who can't afford that single family home, but they still need the 3 bedrooms? And Vince said, yeah, it's a big problem, because to build a three bedroom condo, you're now looking at $700,000. So, is there a trade-off?
Yeah, I don't have a better word for it, Marty, but affordable housing, it depends on the market. Like, it's really, and it's the wrong word to use, but it's accessible housing. It's accessible to those at a certain income level, not from a physical point of view, but actual from an income level. Are we producing enough, and will intensification produce enough accessible housing that helps meet part of that marketplace?
And give us a diversity in society that we really need.
Well, we actually have here. It's just, unfortunately, in Burlington, it's a little bit invisible. But we how many food banks do we have in town? How many people are using the food banks?
Exactly.
So we can be deniers in a sense that it's not a problem here, but it is an issue for us. From the panel that you had, or the discussion you had, was there any conclusions, or what was the purpose of the?
Well, so Vince Molinaro was there with Molinaro Developments, probably one of the bigger developers in the city of Toronto. Mary Lou, as I mentioned, Mary Lou Tanner, Lynn Townsend. Lynn Townsend is probably the most recognized planning and development lawyer in Ontario. So she had a lot of really good input, and to be honest with you, kind of what they were trying to bring across to us was it's coming, whether we like it or not. Get ready, and so from Mary Lou's standpoint, her big focus, her conclusion was we only have one chance to do this, so we got to do it right. And I've seen some plans. You look at Waterdown Road, Waterdown Road and Plains Road. You look at that north section going up, and the plans they have for that, and it's beautiful. It really is. And so the whole idea of having the mobility hubs at the GO stations, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah, but just look at what they've done in Burlington. Let's use Burlington as an example. They've put Walmart there, one level, and that is not a good utilization of land.
Oh, you read the same article I did too.
But
it
it
makes
isn't.
complete sense.
It isn't.
Why isn't the Walmart at the bottom level of
exactly?
Of the building? Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're still getting it wrong. And because that Walmart is relatively new, and I'm not saying anything about Walmart, but I'm saying the planning of that location was incorrect to make it one level.
But there are other opportunities, though, in town. For example, I would say, and this is a personal opinion, the Lakeshore Plaza down on Lakeshore there, it's struggling along, let me put it that way. It has some stores, the Shoppers Drug Mart and the grocery store are very active, and then others are. But that's a place where I would anticipate that there would be some intensification. That, why aren't we growing up a little bit in the air there and providing retail maybe on the bottom level, and then and residential above that would be. So I think what the message would be that, intensification where it's not intrusive.
It's always intrusive.
Mike,
you're on council. It's always intrusive.
I think you can do intensification without being intrusive. Now, we'll just go down the road a couple kilometers. There's an application for, I think, 38 or 30 townhouses on a piece of property on the lake.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I think the builder there is probably asking for more than what they expect to get for townhouses in the area of single-family large lots. I'm not sure that is the right place for intensification. It may be some intensification, but maybe not to that extent is.
That's what, again, what the panel would classify as soft intensification. Those were their words, not mine. Where it's basically intensification on a very small scale. I think where what was coming across is that so much of Burlington current zoning, they readily admit that the current zoning for the city of Burlington does not meet intensification plans.
Okay.
So, and the Take Plains Road is a prime example. You got one stretch that's zoned for 4 stories, another stretch for 6. Nothing is zoned for 8.
Right.
And yet, what they're looking for, Vince said right out. He said, if we're going to make this work, if we're going to make it affordable, and if it's going to be the true intent of the intensification to follow the Minnesota or the province's plans, you're looking at 18 to 20 stories.
Yeah.
So that's
And
where
now,
you're going to
now
get your
you
pushback.
try and sell that, Mike, to a single-family house on just off Plains Road. That's just not saleable. I don't feel good for Councillor Rick Craven.
Did the head of the planning talk about when the next official plan will be developed?
No. I mean, I just know that it's an ongoing. It's interesting because that's a really good question, and I wish it was asked, and it didn't come up. But I really don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that council in Burlington, based on what Mary Lou is saying, is they're embracing it head on.
Yeah.
I mean,
Till the next election, or close to it.
Close to it, yeah. But then, because you look at the infrastructure too. Where's the money coming from that? And that came up as a question in terms of, how are we going to be able to afford to do all of this? Just things like the sewers and the water mains and gas lines and the whole works to supply all of this, and then the schools. So, the question was asked: Can the boards get together and buy land on their own, that type of thing? And can you, the question came up: Can you start putting schools at the bottom of these high rises? So. There's lots of ideas out there.
But we are going to have to, as Mike said, the people looking for housing are a different mindset than the previous generation. So maybe we do have to think of innovative ideas like that to get that intensification. But I'll tell you, 18 to 20 stories along Plains Road.
Yeah.
Burlington City Council won't have the courage to do that, and I don't care.
And
what,
I don't think
and I
it'll
don't
happen
care
on
what
Plains
anybody
Road,
says.
But you'll see it. You'll see it at the GO stations.
At the GO station, but you've got Walmart,
Mark,
and
you've got to
it's
remember
one
who
story.
said it. It was a developer who said it. So
Wishful thinking.
yeah. So 20 stories, knowing he's getting 12 or 15, would be happy. That's
right.
So I think you have to
good
be
point.
a bit careful
Good
with that. And I actually.
15 is
I
a
think
tough
this
sell,
council
Mike.
and future councils will have to do a job of educating people what intensification actually means, and I'm confident that the public will at least understand. They may not agree, but at least they'll be able to understand what the issue is and why using the infrastructure that's underground more efficiently than we are now.
But they still dig it up and replace it when there's intensification, and I know it's not as expensive. But I think I agree with you. They understand that if you got a water pipe, better to have 6 stories utilizing that than 1 story. But it's still not an easy sale.
Marty, would the chamber have a position on the urban boundary, or would they like to see the boundary
Expanding
moved?
it?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that? I mean, your fight is a lot bigger because you've got the Conservation Authority up there, and that's really what's blocking it. One of the numbers that was put out at this meeting is that there are approximately 800 developable lots left in Burlington.
That's it, eh?
800.
You go back to 2010, and there was 15,000 that were developed in the city, and now we're left with about 800. So, I think I said at the beginning of this, I have two positions on this, one from the residential and one from the business side. And from the chamber standpoint, I think it's a good thing. I mean, we call ourselves the voice of business in Burlington.
Right.
And if you consider things like the having to upgrade the infrastructure, there's jobs, there's opportunities for new business. The style that they're talking about creating in terms of the residential style will attract a lot of millennials, a lot of educated people, hopefully, that will just, as I was saying earlier, the jobs will come as opposed to the other way around. You build the right thing for the people and they'll come, and then the business will follow. So we're big proponents of doing it right. I'm not going to say that everybody's going to be happy about it. I'm not sure I'm happy about it as a longtime Burlington resident. But when I look at it from a business standpoint, and what it will do for business in Burlington, I think there's a lot of good that will come from it. Mostly from a standpoint that is, we said right at the beginning of this conversation, we don't have a lot of choice.
Right.
Marty, I want to thank you very much for joining us and bringing those insights to intensification. I agree, it has to happen. I agree that it's going to be a hard fight, a hard battle all the way. So thanks a lot for joining us.
My pleasure.
You just had an article in the Burlington Post.
Yes.
That's where I read it and thought it might be interesting to back on to Mike's guest in real estate.
Yeah.
So you're the vice chair of the board of directors of the Burlington Chamber of Commerce, and we thank you so much. And to our audience, stay tuned. We'll be right back.